Hi friends, happy Monday. Welcome back to our read aloud for today. Today we are going to continue reading some more Apple stories, some Apple books. And as I told you on Friday, we're going to read Johnny Appleseed today. So I'm so excited to read that story with you and work towards our learning target. So let's take a look at what our learning target is. Our learning target says, I can identify the main idea of the text. When we say identify in this learning target, that means that you're going to be able to tell what the main idea is. The main idea is the big idea. And in order to do that, we have to ask ourselves some questions as readers and also draw from our schema what we already know about that topic, about apples. So our story today is Johnny Appleseed, and we're going to use what we've already learned and know about apples in order for our brains to understand what the story is about. So let's take a look at our KWL chart for apples. The K stands for what we already know, what we wanted to learn at the time that we made this chart, and what we learned once we were finished reading our nonfiction text, the informational text about apples. So let's take a look. We said we already knew that apples are red, yellow, and green. You can buy them at the grocery store. Apples grow on trees. Those are some things that our brains probably already knew about apples. Since you're not in class, we really don't know, but I'm just going off of what our friends in the past have told us. Our W stands for what we want to know. So as readers, we asked ourselves some questions and thought, ooh, I'm going to use my schema and think about, okay, well, I already know this about apples. What do I want to learn? Our first question said, what season do apples grow? We learned in the fall. Our next question said, who picks the apples? Well, we learned farmers. We also learned in some texts that anybody can pick apples from the apple trees as long as you go to the apple farm where the trees are growing the apples. Our other question, what do people use apples for? We said eating sliced apples, eating it off the core, eating or making applesauce with it, and other types of food. And then we also learned that the apples have an apple cycle. So they repeat themselves over and over again. At the very beginning of the apple cycle, they start as a little bitty seed. And then that seed is planted, and with enough water and sunlight, it starts to grow. And over 6 years of time, raise the roof if you're 6 years old. Oh yeah, do the wiki if you will be 6 years old. Woo! Over the span of 6 years, it takes that tree to grow after being a little seedling. And then on that tree develop some little apple blossoms, a little flower that we see is usually pinkish whitish. And then from the apple blossoms grow the apples. And they start out as small green apples, and then they grow bigger and start to change colors into what the color of the apple should be, red, green, or yellow. So there's our 6 years. And then down here it says farmers harvest the apples, and apples grow and are small in the summertime. And they're small then because in the fall time is when they're ripe and ready to be picked. So with all of that in our brains, everybody touch your brains and say apples. Very good. In your brain now you're thinking about apples. Now we're going to start using our schema, what we know about apples, to read our story of Johnny Appleseed. While I'm reading this story, I want you to think about what the main idea is. Think about, why am I reading this story about Johnny Appleseed? What am I learning from this story? Okay, so this is Johnny Appleseed by Madeline Olson. So Madeline Olson is the author who wrote the words, illustrated by Stephen James Petruccio. So when it says illustrated by, that means this man drew the pictures or the illustrations. You can see on the front cover, we can assume or infer that that is Johnny Appleseed. And here's our title page. It has the same words, a different picture clue though, as our front cover. So it says Johnny Appleseed, and then it still has our author and illustrator's name here. And here's where our story begins. Take a look at those illustrations. This is the story of a man who loved apples. His name was John Chapman, but he was called Johnny Appleseed. Johnny Appleseed loved to go to new places. He walked in woods, he walked up and down hills, and on his head, he wore a pot. What? Is that what we use pots for? He's silly. Johnny loved the animals he met. The animals came up close to him. They were not afraid. Who is he playing with there? Little bear cubs. Johnny loved to be outdoors. At night, he sat by his fire. He ate nuts and berries for dinner. Most of all, Johnny Appleseed loved apples. He ate all kinds of apples, red, yellow, and green. Everywhere Johnny Appleseed went, he planted apples. He carried a sack filled with apple seeds. He helped people plant the seeds in the ground. First, he worked hard to clear the land. So in my brain right now as a reader, I'm thinking, okay, I know now Johnny Appleseed is important to the story because he's the one who carries apples and brings the seeds around. Then he planted apple seeds. The seeds were placed in rows. He showed people how to build fences, and the fences helped to keep out animals. Now the seeds could grow. Why do you think the animals wanted to come in where the fences were trying to keep them out? Probably because they wanted to eat those seeds, right? But they're putting up the fences to protect the seeds so they can grow. Sometimes he gave people small apple trees. He showed the people how to plant the trees. Every spring, the trees bloomed with pink flowers. What do we call those flowers? We know from our schema that's called apple blossoms. In the fall, the apples are ready to be picked from the trees. People made all kinds of delicious food from the apples. They ate applesauce and apple butter, and they drank cider. Ooh, what is apple butter? Apple butter is kind of like jelly, but tastes like apple flavored. Johnny Appleseed made many friends. Whenever Johnny visited, the people welcomed him. Johnny loved to talk with the children. He told them stories. Over the years, Johnny Appleseed planted many trees. He watched his trees grow tall. Now look at him. Does he look the same or different than the other pages? Different. I'm going to use my schema to figure out why. I know when people get older, their hair color starts to change a little bit. He looks like he has gray hair now and white versus the brown hair he had before. So it looks to me like he's getting older. Johnny wanted everyone to enjoy apples. That's why he shared his apple seeds and trees. Thanks to Johnny Appleseed, today we enjoy many different kinds of apples. Where are these people getting their apples from? It looks like maybe a farmer's market. The next time you eat an apple, think of Johnny Appleseed. The end. All right, let's give that story 2 thumbs up. So our learning target says that as readers, we should be thinking about the main idea of the text. So what's the main idea? The main idea is the big idea. And we think about what the main idea is by asking ourselves questions. So I want you to think, what was that story about? Or who was that story about? If you said Johnny Appleseed, kiss your brains. Now, that is our main idea. This story is about a man named Johnny Appleseed. But we want to learn more about why that's important. So we have to use supporting details. Can you use your hands like that with me and say supporting details? Very good. The supporting details are what the book tells us that Johnny Appleseed does, why he's important. So what is Johnny Appleseed's job? What does he do? He goes through the land and shares his apple seeds and apples with all kinds of people, right? And he plants the seeds in rows so that they grow into what? Apple trees, right? And over the years and over time, lots and lots of apples began to grow throughout our whole country. And he is the reason why we get to enjoy those tasty apples. Very important to know. Excellent. Give yourself 2 thumbs up today, readers. Tomorrow we will look at another apple book and continue working on our main idea. That's going to be our learning target all this week for our read alouds so that we can keep training our brains to understand and think about what we're reading. Keep up the great work. I'll see you tomorrow, friends.